we inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to The Core here on American Family Radio. Walker Wildmon here on this latest edition. Glad to be with you. As a reminder, you can always subscribe to the podcast at any time by going to your podcast store, typing in the name of this program, At the Core, and you can click the subscribe or the follow button. And the latest episode will be ready to go in your podcast library each and every afternoon. So we upload the live program that you hear right now on AFR. We upload it in the form of a podcast each afternoon, and you can catch the show at your convenience. So that's the great benefit of the podcasting world, is you can listen when your schedule allows. So go to At the Core podcast page, click the subscribe button, and you'll have the show right there at your fingertips. John chapter 12 is where we are this week, looking at verses 35, looking a little earlier at 27. We see where Jesus says, "Father, save me from this hour," talking about the coming crucifixion of Christ. And in other parts of Scripture, especially in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus petitions the Lord to take this cup, may this cup pass from me, is basically what Jesus said, talking about his coming crucifixion. And obviously, the cup did not pass from him because Christ was crucified, he was buried, and he did raise from the dead, and he was raised from the dead, rather. But here you have Jesus foretelling of his death on the cross, and in very specific fashion. And the evidence of Jesus as the Son of God is overwhelming. Overwhelming evidence that Jesus is the Son of God. And not only evidence looking back in history, but there was a mountain of evidence at the time Jesus was on earth that he was in fact the Son of God. But the fact that Jesus can foretell of his death with specificity and then raise himself from the dead through the power of God is in fact evidence that Jesus is the Son of God. No one else can do that. Someone can foretell of their death, but no one can be raised from the dead without the intervention of God. And so we read last week a little bit about Lazarus. Well, Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead. And here, Jesus foretells of raising himself from the dead. But the raising of Lazarus from the dead was a temporal raising. Raising of the Son of God from the dead was a permanent raising. And so Jesus is still risen and has defeated death and defeated sin. That's why, in fact, he is the Son of God. That's John chapter 12, looking at verses 27 through 35. Well, preborn, we're wrapping up our campaign over the last few weeks, talking about preborn ministry. We've been partnering with them for over a decade. 67 million babies' lives have been taken through abortion since Roe v. Wade. Is that not astonishing? Very tragic. And nearly 60% of all abortions are done through the abortion pill. That leaves about 40% of abortions done through surgical abortions, which is where preborn comes into play. Preborn ministry provides free ultrasounds to women in need. $28 provides one ultrasound, $140 provides 5 ultrasounds. And so we want to help 5,000 babies over the last week or two, and this is the last day to wrap this up. And so if you want to donate to Preborn, you can call 877-616-2396, 877-616-2396, or you can go to afr.net, afr.net. So we appreciate all of you who have contributed thus far. We were approaching 4,000 ultrasounds underwritten the last time I checked. So let's hit 5,000 as we wrap this up this week. And we appreciate everyone who's partnered with us. Preborn is saving lives by the hour, by the day, through these free ultrasounds through Preborn partner clinics. That's what Preborn Ministry is doing. Well, we do have tours coming up in 2026. We're going to Williamsburg, Washington, D.C., Jamestown, Yorktown, and Boston, Massachusetts, all in 2026. So if you want to join us on one of these spiritual heritage tours, the first ones coming up are in June. Then we have some in September as well. So if you want to join us in June or September, Washington, Williamsburg, you can do that. Or if you want to meet us in Boston in late September, we would be glad to have you on that trip as well. All the information you need is over at wildmangroup.com, wildmangroup.com for all the information on our tours. All right, let's talk about this ongoing immigration battle that we have in our country. This has really dominated the news cycle for months, and really, I would say this has been the story of the Trump administration 2.0, is the mass deportation efforts. As I've reminded my audience, this drama, if you will, that you see in the media and on television and on social media regarding President Trump's immigration crackdown, it is dramatized on purpose. This is all very well organized. And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the clashes in the streets, the rioting, the protests, the mobs, the obstruction, the media coverage, Minneapolis, Minnesota, other states. This is all brought to you by the left, capital L-E-F-T. What is the left? The left is the Democrats and their partners in the media and in the non-governmental organization world. All of these outfits, nonprofits, media, journalists, so-called journalists, Democrat Party operatives, PACs, super PACs, dark money groups, this all makes up what is known as the left, all right? And this agitation against federal immigration officials is no accident, folks. This is no accident. You don't get a intensive care unit nurse, which was the guy that was shot in Minneapolis last week. You don't get an ICU nurse taking off of work, using vacation time to go assault federal officers. You don't get that unless someone is organizing it, all right? You don't get the Renee Good driving multiple states. She wasn't even from Minneapolis. Driving multiple states to use her vehicle to ram federal immigration officials. You don't get that unless there is a well-organized group or groups that are behind this. Now, one area of frustration that I have is the fact that we still haven't been told who's organizing these groups. Now we've known through open source information that there are chat groups and signal groups and other chat platforms that have these Antifa groups that all tell each other where to be and what to do. But there has to be a money network behind this. And the Trump administration and Tom Homan have actually indicated such. But where I'm frustrated is this has been going on for 12 months now, and when you look at past administrations, it's been going on for years. And I don't know why there are not arrests being made, or at least press releases being had that tell us who's funding all this. Who is paying for Renee Good to drive multiple states so she can ram her vehicle into federal officers? Why is the ICU nurse incentivized to take off work and use vacation time to go riot and protest? This is just bizarre stuff. And so it's very well organized. Maybe RICO statutes could be deployed here. They used them against President Trump. They used them against the mafia. Why can't you use them in this instance? But the entire reason that we are where we are is because the Democrats in political office have decided not to cooperate with federal officials in turning over illegal immigrants. You have that dynamic at play. Simultaneously, you have paid agitators roaming the streets, assaulting federal officials. All of this brings you a recipe for disaster in which we have in Minneapolis. So I want to play a clip here if you want to get a little bit of a taste of how these Democrat politicians and district attorney talk. This is a Philadelphia district attorney talking about how his office is willing to, quote, hunt down immigration officials and agents. This is going to be clip 2.
If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades, we will find your identities. We will find you. We will achieve justice.
There you have it. There you have it. That's a Philadelphia prosecutor saying we will hunt down immigration agents like we did the Nazis. And we wonder why there's violence against ICE agents. And I could pull clips like that for days. We could play hours of programming of Democrat officials talking like that. This is how they roll. And so now President Trump has sent Tom Homan up to Minnesota. And now that we have hundreds of federal agents injured and 2 American citizens dead, now Minnesota officials say, we'll probably cooperate with you guys. We'll cooperate. So this is going to be Tom Homan announcing at a press conference yesterday that Immigration and Customs Enforcement has reached a deal with the county jail system in Minnesota that they will notify ICE when they have illegal immigrants with violent offenses in their jails to be released. This is going to be clip 1.
I'm also pleased to announce I had a very good meeting with Attorney General Ellison, and he has clarified for me that county jails may notify ICE of the release dates of criminal public safety risks so ICE can take custody of them upon their release from the jail. And let me tell you why that's important. I know people are a lot concerned about the manpower has been set in law enforcement manpower. Look, I've said this many times before. I've said it for the last several years. Give us access to the illegal alien public safety threat and the safety and security of a jail. It's common sense. It's safer for the community, it's safer for the agent, and it's safer for the alien. Because anything can happen on a street arrest.
There you have it. So after we've had hundreds of federal agents assaulted and all of this ruckus and absolute national embarrassment, the Marxist Attorney General of Minnesota wants to say, yeah, I guess we'll cooperate now. I mean, I guess we've caused enough trouble. So you're telling me this could have been avoided? You're telling me this could have been all avoided? Federal agents could have had their lives protected, not been assaulted, not been doxxed, not been harassed, not had death threats. You're telling me all of this could have been avoided? The multiple immigration shootings could have all been avoided had you guys just cooperated from day one. Very indicting.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to The Core here on American Family Radio. Well, as I've said from the very beginning, giving up isn't an option when it comes to the Trump administration and the mass deportation agenda. Giving up, backing down, backing out in the name of, quote, avoiding conflict, it's just not a card on the table. It's just not an option. This country has been overrun by foreigners that are not American citizens, that are not legal. And this is the ultimate, one of the ultimate examples of a Western country being overtaken. And when you look at what the Democrats idolize the most, you've got abortion up at the top. You've also got the gender insanity, the men can be women, women can be men insanity. And then you've got this weird fixation on protecting foreigners who break into our country. I mean, once they got past Obama, which Obama was no good guy, and he did a lot of damage to our country, by the way, but he deported 5 million illegal immigrants. They were arresting kids. Obama was. Obama was, quote, putting them in cages, to use a quote from the left. And whenever President Trump came along, all of a sudden, the enforcement of America's immigration laws became scandalous. It became a hot button topic. It became something that was a, quote, political divide in our country. And whether every Democrat knows this or not, I don't know. I don't know the heart and the mind. I can tell you this, though, that the mass importation of foreigners leads to the destruction of a nation. Look at Europe. What is Europe? What is left of Europe? This is a very tough subject, so prepare accordingly, but we have to address what mass migration of people who don't share your values does to a nation. And there are other nations in history past that we could assess, but let's look at modern history, Europe. Europe has been ravaged by the Muslims. Let's be honest about this. Europe has been ravaged and pillaged by the Muslims. Wherever the Muslims go, and this is a factual assessment. This is not, quote, Islamophobic or, quote, bigoted or whatever other kind of language you want to throw out to belittle and demean and actually distract from the main point at hand. Wherever the Muslims go, they destroy. All right? This is why Iraq, Syria, and if you want to talk about Gaza, you can talk about that. That's why all of these places, and there's many other, they are still living in dirt houses with no electricity, no running water. This is living conditions of 500 to 700 years ago. There is no innovation. There is no ingenuity. There is no creativity. The Muslim religion, where enforced according to the text of the Quran and Sharia law, it is like 10th century stuff. And they don't allow anything Western, anything modern, anything Western. They don't allow. Definitely not Christianity. And so you have a culture of people, mostly from the Middle East and other parts of the country, other parts of the world, that don't even understand and have never tasted, number one, Christianity, but number two, what Western civilization is like because of the flourishing and the spread of Christianity. By the way, if you don't remember or you've never been told, the reason we have this thing called the West is because of Christianity. If it weren't for the Protestant Revolution and many other parts of Christian history, there would be no West. There would be no freedom, liberty, and civilizations built on human flourishing and the protection of life and property. All of these are core tenets of the Christian faith that have built the West, being Europe and the United States. And so whoever's idea it was in Europe to begin allowing the mass immigration, mostly illegally, of Muslims that don't share Western values, that was a terrible idea. And then in America, we decided to do the same. And then on top of the mass immigration of Muslims to America, which we've been doing through a litany of refugee programs and a porous open border, this is a misnomer on the southern border. Everybody thinks that everybody who comes over is Hispanic or from Mexico or Guatemala or somewhere in Central or South America. Completely untrue. Completely not true. That's fake news. You've got immigrants from Iran coming over the southern border. You've got immigrants from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Pakistan, Syria, Iraq. You've got immigrants from all over the world coming across the southern border. And so the permission of this, or the permissiveness of this, leads me to believe is that those who are in favor of this open borders policy, they're ultimately in favor of and attempting to achieve the downfall of America. This is where this goes. This is not just some weird political agenda of people who don't even think we should have borders. No. It's way deeper than that. This is a worldview of people that don't think America should exist. They think America is an evil country. We were evil colonizers. We ravaged the Indians, the Native Americans. We don't even belong here. We never should have came here. We're trespassing. It's stolen land. These are all their talking points. Which all of that's completely untrue, by the way, if you know true history. And so that's what this is all about. And so when you have people, to bring this back to Minneapolis, when you have people, American citizens, willing to die in the streets because they can't control themselves and they think it's a great idea to assault federal officers while wearing a firearm. Terrible idea. Under every circumstance, bad idea. And they're willing to put their life on the line for someone who shouldn't even be here. They've broken our laws. They don't even belong here. They should go back. And we've got American citizens shedding their blood on our streets for that. This is insanity. And these are people who want the destruction of America, and they will put their life on the line to ensure the destruction of America. That's what this is about. It's rather religious when you look into it. And I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, and I don't know the background of the guest here, so I can't vouch for him beyond this clip. But what he said here is absolutely right. And he's talking about how the left, remember, the left being the Democrat Party, the sympathizing media, the enabling media, all of these non-government, non-profit groups like the Soros Foundation that are behind a lot of this left-wing garbage, all of this makes up the left. And then you've got the captured institutions, bundle that into the left. But this gentleman, Andrew Wilson, is telling Joe Rogan that the left, they target the mentally ill, and that's how you get Renee Good. That's how you get the, quote, ICU nurse getting in a spat with federal officials. This is how you get the transgender shooters. This is how you get Tyler Robinson assassinating Charlie Kirk. This is how you get the Butler, Pennsylvania attempted assassination. Because the left, through their propaganda, through social media, through their fake news coverage, they are targeting people who are not very well mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and those are the ones carrying out the violence. Let's listen.
And I can't prove this, but it's been my experience that left-wing communities and left-wing groups, especially online communities and online groups, really pander to the mentally ill in a big way, really pander to them. And I think that it's a form of weaponization. They want to attract the extremely mentally ill into these communities, and it helps with actually what is radicalization. And they play on the fact that they're mentally ill in order to do this.
Well, this is Antifa, right? Like this is why
it's not just Antifa. It goes beyond that.
Sure.
Like, if you go to some of these TikTokers communities, you go to some of the online political pundits communities who are far left, okay, these people who are in there are Fruit Loops, man.
Yeah.
They are lunatics, and they're pandered to. They're pandered to. Oh, okay, you can't say this to them. That's ableist. You can't tell them you're a weirdo because that's mean. You can't. And not only are they pandered to, but I think that that's the source of the weapon. If it's the case that these people don't care about death, they don't care. Like, the outcome's going to be death.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, and I don't want to dismiss the spiritual angle here, which anybody who listens to AFR on this program knows we clearly attribute what's going on in our country and in the world from an evil vantage point. We attribute it ultimately to a spiritual battle. That's undeniable, right? You look at the kind of evil that takes place, it can only be attributed to demonic forces and evil at play, all right? So that's understood. You know, anybody who shares a proper understanding of Scripture understands the spiritual nature that we face as Christians, both with the Holy Spirit and the spirit of darkness, the spirit of Satan. So that's an understood across the board. Within a populace like 360 plus million Americans that we have, because our culture has been, as I said, ravaged, and in many ways ravaged from within. I mean, this is not a full, blame illegal immigrants for everything under any circumstance. Because you take the problem of illegal immigration out of our country, we've still got major issues here, all right? I mean, one being the fact that we have dropped a nuclear bomb into the nuclear family. We have dropped a bomb into the nuclear family and told kids that you don't need a mommy and daddy. And we've got divorce rates over 50% across the board, even within the church. So even the heterosexuals can't get it right. And then we've got men having surgery and they think they can be girls, and it's insanity. It's wicked is what it is. And so you've got all of this compounding in our culture. And so you have young people that are now not so young anymore. These are people now in their 30s and 40s that have lived and been raised in this ravaged culture where nobody knows what truth is, and they are very unstable. They are mentally unstable, they are emotionally unstable, and they are ultimately spiritually unstable. And these are the people, and this is very sad stuff, by the way, because this all affects humans created in the image of God. So let's not take this lightly. We're not talking robots here. We're talking humans created in the image of God that have experienced great levels of disappointment, of grief, of evil, in many cases been completely taken advantage of, been taught the wrong thing. And so these people, very lonely, very depraved, are now, they're now stuck on these phones, they call them smartphones, I'm going to call them dumb phones. They're on social media, they're on Reddit, they're in these chat rooms, And they're basically surrounding themselves with other seriously broken people. All right? And ultimately, like every person on this earth, they're looking for purpose. They would like purpose because it's a very dark and fallen world. And the Marxists come in and the propagandists come in and they hang this bait in front of them and say, this is a righteous cause. Look at our religion of secular humanism, where man is God. And then you've got these crazy Christians that want to get in the way of secular humanism and fulfilling the desires of the flesh. And thus they call us Nazis, they call us bigots, they call us haters. And any institution that seeks to bring about some semblance of sanity, normalcy, structure, law and order, i.e., law enforcement, specifically federal law enforcement in the immigration realm, they call them Nazis. And they basically poke these very vulnerable people into doing very evil things. This is how we get the school shooters. This is how we get the assassinations of conservatives. This is how we get the attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh and President Trump and others. This is how we get the endless stream of death threats, is because the left is taking advantage of very vulnerable people. Friends, new research is revealing something heartbreaking. More than 7 million American women suffer severe, long-lasting emotional distress after an abortion, grief, flashbacks, and a quiet regret that often never goes away. And my friends at Preborn see this pain firsthand in the thousands of clinics they support. But there is hope, and it begins with something powerful. When a woman sees her baby on an ultrasound, everything changes. Her baby's chance at life doubles. And for just $28, you can support that ultrasound, bringing a lifetime of blessing. This is what real healthcare looks like inside Preborn Network clinics. Preborn stands on the front lines, providing free ultrasounds, compassionate counseling, and gospel-centered support to young mothers in crisis. They are saving babies, they are healing hearts, and they are making motherhood possible. If you believe, as I do, that every child matters and no woman should walk through this road alone, join me today. Support an ultrasound. Preborn was honored with the 2025 Shining Light Award for Financial Integrity, so you can give with confidence. To donate, dial pound 250 and say baby. Dial pound 250 and say baby. That's pound 250 baby. Or visit preborn.com/AFR. That's preborn.com/AFR.
At the Core podcasts are available at AFR.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Core. Well, just to wrap up what we were talking about last segment, this is why American Family Radio exists. This is why American Family Association exists. And more importantly, this is why the Church of Jesus Christ exists, is because we live in a fallen world. Read the book of Genesis. And our world is in desperate need of redemption and the saving and the turning away from sin. And the only person that can provide that is Jesus Christ himself. As I mentioned in the first segment, he was raised from the dead and is the Son of God. And he proved himself to be the Son of God through raising of the dead and the resurrection and ascension into heaven. And so for those out there who are hopeless, Jesus brings us ultimate hope. He brings us ultimate redemption, ultimate restoration. And that's what we aim to point people towards here at American Family Radio, because this world of brokenness, it doesn't have to be this way. Now, we know we'll always live in a broken world until Christ returns and provides ultimate redemption. But in the meantime, God has given his church the ability to turn from sin and to avoid temptation, or to resist temptation, rather, and to avoid sin and to live righteous lives. God's given us that power. He's given us that authority. And so you just have to trust in him. And that's what we point people to here on American Family Radio as often as we can. Well, Chris Woodward is back with us. Chris, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
Last segment, we were talking about this just downfall of America that we've experienced in the last several decades, and how there's just so many people that have basically fallen victim to this failed culture of darkness that America has been experiencing, where you've got divorce rates high, you've got suicide rates through the roof, you've got drug overdose rates that are very bad, although it's trending in a good direction right now, trending down. And then marriage has been undermined. Children, have been their rights have been diminished. Their rights to their parents have been diminished. And so we were just talking about all of this coming together, and that's how you get kind of these radicalized Marxists.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're hopeless. They don't have anything good to look towards. And so the left's just coming along and offering them what they think is purpose, right? And a mission, and it's ending very badly for some of them.
And I will tell those people out there that the left does not care about you. They just want you to vote them into office to continue to make you feel bad about yourself and convince you that the other side is the reason for your problems, and if you'll just keep voting us in.
Perpetual victimhood.
We'll eventually fix it. Just be patient. It's always the other guy.
That pretty much sums up how the Democrat Party has won elections over the last 15 years.
Yes.
Yeah, create permanent victims and then claim that they're going to save the day every day.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people, like conservative African Americans, have criticized the Democratic Party for. Hey, you came along in the 60s and you said this and you promised that, but here we are in 20 whatever, and things aren't any better. What did you not do? And really, in the 2024 campaign, that's why a lot of people in places like Chicago were going to city council meetings and criticizing the mayor and the city council members.
Because they weren't safe in their own streets.
Right. And also they were using taxpayer-funded services that those people worked hard and paid taxes for, and they weren't benefiting from them because they were putting illegal immigrants up in schools and other places.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, the Federal Reserve met this week, and tell us how their meeting went.
Well, my takeaway was Jerome Powell listens to these segments. So I was glad to see that.
I would love to think that.
Yes.
We do have a station up there.
We do. So maybe Jerome,
not beyond
if
the
you're
realm
listening,
of possibility. Yeah.
Jerry, thanks for listening. But Jerome Powell, he made this statement at a press conference. He says, quote, "The economy has once again surprised us with its strength." Anybody that's listened to this show in the last 6 months would know that we have talked about surprising economic news, things that you're not going to see on CNN or MS Now. But Powell says the economy has once again surprised us with its strength. He said we have a solid economy. We've got diminished risks to both inflation and employment. But the takeaway from this that a lot of people ran headlines with, Fed leaves rates unchanged, sees somewhat elevated inflation and stabilizing job market. And for people that don't know this, a lot of folks get their news from the headline, which is why people think the economy is in terrible shape when it's in fact not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not in terrible shape. It's still, I would say it's still in a recovery phase, if you will, from what Biden did to it. Biden just destroyed the economy in many regards and caused a lot of the inflation that we dealt with. President Trump gets to replace Powell. And what's interesting, by the way, before we get into who he's going to replace him with, which is supposed to come out next week, I've read from dozens of analysts and people who are in the know on how the Federal Reserve works, that these guys half the time don't know what they're talking about. And when I say these guys, I'm talking about Powell and all of their staffers and everybody, because their models of data that they use is so antiquated. In an era of artificial intelligence and instant information and supercomputing, the Federal Reserve is still using these arcane computer systems and looking at data that's like 30 days old when making decisions. I think there's a lot that has to change. And the reason I point that out is because one month Powell says that the economy is deteriorating, and the employment sector is struggling, right? So we need to lower rates. And then the next month he says we're all good, everything's hunky dory. So, and in 30 days, nothing changes that drastically. So it's just you get these mixed signals.
Yeah,
from Powell.
I think, quite honestly, there's a lot of people in government or some sort of government-involved agency that don't know what they're talking about. Yes, they are people that went to college for a long time. They have more degrees than I do. I have a BA in communication from an A&M university. But I think a lot of these people in these positions don't know what they're talking about, or they've just lived in academia all their life, and they've never really had the real-world job that somebody like a Donald Trump has had that allows that experience and that know-how on how to actually run a business and do monetary things.
Yeah, and one of the kind of hard points that I'm talking about that they rely on is some of their polling and research that they do like every month to help drive the decision making. The sampling is very off. It's very bad. I mean, the participation, I forgot which one of the surveys it was. It was either the employment or maybe the consumer confidence survey. One of these surveys, the participation rate was like really, really low. Like they couldn't get people, and they were doing it by I think they were doing it either by telemarketing or by mail. But it was so like a 1990s way of polling people, right? It was not an online survey. And the point that people were making that were commenting on this is they were like, number one, who fills out a survey that gets mailed to their mailbox anymore? Right. Nobody. All right. Okay. Not that many people. Who answers a robocall anymore? I hope nobody. And so who are we polling? Who is the Fed polling here on this consumer confidence stuff?
Yeah.
And so I just think they need a new chairman that totally revamps how the Fed operates.
Yes.
And the data that they use.
It's a good idea. And as you were talking about the antiquated way they have about going to do their research, I thought of the various months that the jobs report would come out from BLS, and Dan Celia, Lord rest his soul. When Dan would always blast the BLS because he hated how they did the survey. It was a very antiquated 1970s. You call somebody on the dial
and
telephone.
you're talking 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When Dan was
He's like,
criticizing them.
hey, is anybody in your house working? Okay, and one of those things. I can't do Dan's voice, but the government does have very old ways of doing things, and we do need to modernize it. Even if people were to answer things sent to them by what they would perceive as the government, I wouldn't believe the answers that they actually put down because people mistrust the government.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to say here? Am I supposed to say what they want me to say, or am I going to get in trouble if I put something that's really on my mind?
Sure.
So the whole system does need to be revamped. It's 2026.
Yeah.
It's not 1976 or 86 or even 96. The 90s were at least 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So things do need to be changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder what the technology portion of the $2.6 billion ended up being.
Yeah, for the new building?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
I wonder
zero.
if that's just marble.
Yeah, it probably is.
Office space.
Yeah, I'm not sure that includes their computer equipment, right?
Nobody said anything about technology upgrades. So
yeah, maybe they need to. Yeah, let's spend $2.6 billion on a, not million, $2.6 billion on a new office building, and then we'll still use our dial-up internet and our
spreadsheets, 80 columns,
and our old SQL databases.
You get that like sound effect that I heard when I was in like grade school. Yeah.
Chris, do we have any idea who's going to be the next Fed chair?
I don't know. I've seen all kinds of names. I've read the same things you have. I've seen things on television. I've long thought it's just going to be somebody from within the administration. Which obviously somebody's going to have a fit about. And the only reason I say it's going to be somebody from within the administration or somebody Trump maybe had a close relationship with in the previous term, just because he wants his guy or his gal in there to do things the way he thinks they need to be done. Again, Democrats and other critics of this administration are going to have an issue with that. But we all know that he and Powell have been at odds, and he's called on him to do things that Powell, the Trump says, hasn't wanted to do. So I think it's going to be somebody that either has worked for or maybe is possibly working in the current administration.
Yeah. The economy seems to be in an improving kind of trend. And now the mortgage rates have somewhat stalled in recent weeks. They were trending very much down. They're hovering around 6%, which is not terrible. It's decent. But I think they're going to have to get them down to 4.5 to really open up the market for a lot of buyers.
Yeah. And, until that time, I would suggest that a lot of people that are seemingly going to start bringing home some extra money or maybe getting more money back from the IRS than they have, I would suggest that people work and scrimp and save and sock that money away if they're wanting to put a down payment on something.
Yeah.
Because every time we have an economic crisis or a downturn and then we come out of it and there's more money in our pockets, historically speaking, in our lifetimes at least, people spend money like drunken sailors. And then all of a sudden we have a housing crisis again in 10 or 15 years and people are freaking out going, I can't afford to buy mac and cheese.
Right.
This is how you afford to buy things like that, by saving. I need to live up to that myself.
Yeah.
But at some point we have to learn from the past and actually make our own changes so we don't relive it like previous generations.
Yeah, things have ebbed and flowed. For a few months in late 25, it seemed as though the housing market was de-thawing, that inventory was moving, home purchases were moving, things were trending in the right direction. They've somewhat stalled recently, and I think that's because mortgage rates have somewhat stalled, and prices also have somewhat stalled. So I don't know what's going to have to give. Maybe the new year and the spring season brings about, a more friendly market for buyers and sellers, but some things have somewhat stalled. Now, I will say construction, the word is that construction costs are going to continue improving, which will help on new builds.
Yeah.
Because President Trump has basically defeated inflation. And that's another metric, Chris, that the government is way behind on, is their inflation metric. I don't know if you follow Trueflation, but they're on X and other platforms, but they basically aggregate open source information on inflation, and they've been showing inflation around 1.5% across the board. There's some specific categories like beef that are just through the roof, but basically their point is that President Trump has already beat inflation, so lowering rates should be of no concern. As far as Powell saying, if we lower rates, inflation is going to pick back up. What they're saying is we've already beat inflation. Don't even worry about inflation anymore. Now we just got to get the cost of everything down.
Yeah. And to your point, Caroline Leavitt made those same comments in a press briefing last week, maybe the very end of the week before, but she came out and declared victory over what she called Bidenflation. And she did go on to say that, she rattled off egg prices, gas prices, all kinds of things. She did go on to say that they were still focusing on things like beef and other stuff to try to bring those down.
Yeah.
People don't realize this, but if something like beef is up, that's going to impact more than your burgers and your steaks. It's actually going to impact some other stuff that beef is used in or whatnot. So if we can kind of laser focus on some of those things and do policies that make sense and not just the same stuff other people and their administrations have done, I think it only adds to the positives that we, again, think we're going to see and quite frankly know we're going to see as we get into tax season and later this year.
Yeah. I would love to talk a little bit about tariffs, but we're out of time. But the tariffs mostly seem to have leveled out. There's a few kind of spats still out there with some countries. But we need some more trade deals finalized. We need some more trade deals finalized. So we'll keep tracking that. Hey, Chris, appreciate it.
Thank you.
American Family News, AFN.net. Check out their work, read their articles, subscribe to their newsletter, daily newsletter, by the way, into your inbox with all the latest news stories from a Christian perspective. American Family News, AFN.net. We'll see you next time.